345, this is what you would call a postlude. We finished the official silent prayer. And before we take our leave, we take the 3 steps back, there's a certain meditation which we go through, which, both in terms of its content and its structure, teaches some very important principles. So this, on 345, is the last full paragraph on the page, which starts, "My God." The first petition is, "Guard my tongue from evil and my lips from speaking deceitfully." The whole passage of the silent prayer was introduced by a verse which said, God should open my lips so that I can declare his praise. And here we're asking that I should use my power of speech in an appropriate fashion. The whole of the performance in the silent prayer is speech, not meditation, though you should be paying attention to what you're saying, but speech, there's very little, if anything, in the Jewish tradition that requires meditation without words being spoken. Here, many say that they should be spoken silently. That means you form the words with your lips and you breathe outwards. No one around you should hear you, but it's words. That's words that are spoken. And the philosophical idea here is this. What is the essence of the human being? The Greeks were famous for saying that a human being is a rational animal. To be a human being, you have to have a body of a certain type. And the crowning glory of the human species is reason. According to the Maharal, major Jewish philosophers, from a Jewish point of view, that's not correct. And in fact, when Adam is created and the breath of life is blown into his nostrils, and the Torah says he became a living being, the Aramaic translation from Onkelos, 2,000 years ago, says, Ruach Mamalala, a speaking spirit. Speech carries the life of the human being in a way more essential than anything else. Now, why would it be speech rather than reason? After all, when you speak, surely the words that you speak are dictated by your reason, unless you're wasting time. So speech is just a manifestation of reason. Shouldn't the reason, which is being manifested, be the essence? Why would the manifestation be the essence? And the Maharal explains as follows. Our world has in it roughly 2 great dimensions, a physical dimension and a spiritual dimension. All creatures other than man belong to one or another, or the twilight between the dimensions. All creatures other than man are monolithic. Human beings are composed of 2 elements, one physical and one spiritual. And the reason for that is that the job of the human being is to bring the spiritual into the physical. And here you have, I would say, a division among cultures and thought systems, and in particular religions. Many do recognize that there are 2 categories or 2 domains. How do you relate to the 2 domains? There are those that say, since spirituality is infinitely more important than the physical world, retreat from the physical world, live in a cave, live on a mountaintop, don't interact with other people, don't have a family, don't engage in commerce, live off the land, and that way you minimize your interaction with the physical and thereby leave the spiritual to be the guiding post of your life, giving it the major expression. The Torah rejects that. The Torah says that you are both spirit and body, both are elements in your compound existence, and both have potentialities that have to be realized. And the mode of realization is to bring the spiritual into the physical. It's a realization for both, because the physical left to itself is no different from the animal or even the stone. When you bring spirituality into it, you thereby lift it up to a higher level than it on its own would be able to exist, be able to support. But the spiritual is the capacity to elevate the physical. And if the spiritual remains in isolation, then it doesn't live up to its own capacity. It doesn't realize its own potential. Its own potential is in what it does to the physical. In speech, a person takes the thoughts that he has, the understanding that he has, the knowledge, the wisdom, which in and of itself can be spiritual, but has it cause a physical effect, which brings it down into the physical world. And this is why, according to many authorities, when you make the blessings on the study of Torah in the morning, and you're supposed to do that before you study Torah, that's only if you speak Torah. If you think Torah, you don't have to say the blessings, because that's not the realization of Torah in the way in which the human being was designed to do it. Learning Torah is supposed to be done by speaking. You don't sit with your mouth closed and look at a book. You say the words. Yes, there are those who say that writing it would be equally requiring of a blessing, because they're creating a physical object which carries the expression of your thoughts. So when we petition God to help us make our speech pure, it's because that's the expression of our essence in the world, and that's infinitely precious to us. Yeah.
Could you say Tehillim before you say those prayers to be able to pray in the morning? Does Tehillim count? Yeah,
sure. It counts. Well, okay. There's a tricky element here. The answer is yes. Before you say Tehillim, you should pray. This is Psalms. You say the blessing on the study of Torah.
Okay, because I usually I like to wake up in the morning after Modani. I like to say Tehillim, but it's better not to say it right away. It's better to do.
I think that's right. Yeah, you should say the Birkas of Torah first. There's a nuance here. One of the great scholars of Chaim Kanievsky was asked, on Tisha B'Av, we're not allowed to study Torah. Are you allowed to say Psalms, Tehillim? Yeah. And he said, if you're man, no, and if you're woman, yes. Why is that? Why is that? Because a woman prays the Psalms, and a man studies the Psalms. Oh, it says Esrei here. Oh, it says Esrei over there also. Now let's see. Now this is the beginning. Maybe because the beginning of the... He's already got a thought system. He's got a structure, comparison. What are the definitions of the concepts? And a woman's heart is connected to the Creator, and she's pouring out her heart to the Creator. Prayer is permissible on Tisha B'Av. Study of Torah is not. So for a man who's going to attack it intellectually while he's saying it, it's going to be even more, because he won't be saying it the way a woman is saying it.
He's not doing it intellectually if he's doing it from a woman's perspective?
Then I guess it will be okay. But it's hard. How many times have I and others like me been praying and then catching a word catches my eye, and I think, hey, what's that doing there? Didn't notice that before. It comes before that. And already my mind is spinning off. Right? I think men naturally engaged in that more than women do. Not that women are any inferior in any way, but their focus is different.
It's just the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the men and made the women.
Yes, and the way the environment impacts them. And for all these general rules, there are exceptions. I hate to say this, but the Talmud often quotes the statements of non-Jews. And it says that if you're told that in the non-Jewish world there's wisdom, believe it. There is wisdom. If you're told there's Torah, don't believe it. I think the yin and yang symbol carries a profound message, because each half is dominantly one thing and then a little piece of the other thing. And I think, and I'll have in Kabbalistic ideas, everything is compounded of male and female, and even the male in the male and female is compounded of male and female. Everything subdivides infinitely into the pairs. Nothing is simple, nothing is pure. Only the Creator is simple and pure and one-dimensional. So that being the case, there's going to be a little bit of the one and the other, no matter what you do. And then how to divide that is an interesting, serious question. Okay, let's go on. So now, first thing is, help me keep my speech pure. To those who curse me, let my soul be silent. Let my soul be like now. It says dust. So here I have to introduce you to a quirk of translation. There's a word for dust in the Hebrew language. It is avak. That's not what's written here. What's written here is afar. Afar means dirt. But you don't want to say, let my soul be like dirt. I mean, you can't say that in English. It's depressing. It's defiling and so forth and so on. But it says dirt. It doesn't say dirt. You could call it soil if you want to be more polite. But it's not dust. Dust and soil are not the same thing at all. There's a great American desert in the southwestern United States. It's called the Great Dust Bowl because almost nothing lives there. That's where Death Valley is, one of the hottest places on earth. Dust is something which blows in the wind. Dust doesn't support life. Soil is the root of all life on the planet because almost all vegetation is rooted in soil and gets its nutrition from soil, and the rest of the food chain eats the vegetation, and then some eat the animals that eat the vegetation. Without that, you wouldn't have anything. So soil has a very rich physical component and a very rich spiritual component. The Jewish people, in the time of the patriarchs, when God promises them a vast population, are likened to three things: the stars in the sky, to the soil, and to the sand at the seashore. And the image of the soil, the simple image of the soil, connotes this. Number one, it nourishes the whole world. Number two, you can step on it, stamp on it, run tanks over it, and immediately when the pressure is released, you can plant the seed and it will grow. The soil is not injured by being stamped on. And the same is true for the Jewish people, as history proves grandiosely, the creativity and the productivity of the Jewish people, with exile, without exile, pogroms, is not extinguished. At any rate, so here, I want my soul to be like soil to everyone, meaning that I'm not going to fight them, I'm not going to oppose them, I'm not going to stand up for my rights and my honor in their face. I'm going to allow them to treat me socially any way they want. And I put in the word socially because we do not believe that you should allow people to injure you. That not. The famous motto in the Talmud is, someone who comes to kill you, kill him first. Get out of bed, sneak up behind him as he's coming down the road, and shoot him. Someone who comes to kill you first. And you can protect your property, you can protect your physical being, and if someone's attacking you, and the only way to stop him is by attacking him, you're permitted to attack him. All these things done in self-defense are perfectly permissible. But there are times when you're not going to be injured. He insults you in public. I can walk away and I'm not injured. He's trying to injure my reputation. Either the people he's talking to are so ill-informed and uneducated that they'll believe him and it won't matter because it's not really important what they think about me. And if they're educated and they're sophisticated, they won't believe him. And it won't injure me at all. So the idea here is not to stand on your rights and assert your dignity and repay insult with injury. No, that's not. You should be in a position where these things don't matter to you. They don't matter to you. So that's what he says. That's what he thinks. Have a nice day. If you aren't that way, then you're so self-involved. You're so involved in protecting your ego that it gives you an inner focus rather than an outer focus, and that's not healthy spiritually. You want to say something?
Two questions. One, if the translation, like dust and dirt, is not so accurate, is it even appropriate to pray in English if it's not exactly the...
So
that's one question. And the second question, if I may ask, the rabbi just said that you would kill someone right before they would come to kill you, kill them first, but isn't Lashon Hara in some ways worse than killing someone? Because isn't there a phrase?
The crucial phrase in your second question is "in some ways." Right? Things can be compared in many ways, and not all comparisons have the same outcome. I can't shoot him before he speaks his Lashon Hara. I cannot do that. He's not tried for murder. He speaks Lashon Hara. He doesn't get executed for murder. So it's not in those ways comparable. It's comparable in some other ways. right? Embarrassing someone in public is considered by the Gemara like an offshoot of murder, but you don't execute a person for embarrassing somebody in public. So you have to be very careful with comparisons. The Rambam, in the beginning of the Guide of the Perplexed, makes this point about the word domeh in Hebrew. There's a verse that says, "I am similar to the pelican in the wilderness." So this is not a prophet speaking. So Ramani says, does he have feathers? Does he stand on one foot, Does he fly? No, he means he's lonely like. And that's all he means. And no other comparisons are relevant. So when you say something X is like Y, this is like relative identity. In what respects is it like, and what conclusion should I draw from that? Now, playing in English is problematic, just as you understood, because translations are very difficult. I've spoken to you many times about shalom, not meaning peace. In their inner semantics, they're almost opposites from one another. Peace in English is the absence of disturbance, the absence of interference. It's a purely negative concept. In English, you could say the graveyard is very peaceful. You could never apply shalom for a graveyard. Shalom comes from a root that means whole, complete, missing nothing, in a certain sense, in an ideal state. So when in English you talk about a cold peace, that's not a bad comment. That means we're not really friends. We're not really cooperating. We don't really have similar goals and priorities. We're not shooting bullets at each other. Okay, that's important, but that's not what we would call shalom in Hebrew. You couldn't say that. So really, you have to make do with the inaccuracies of the translations. And that means you have to be cautious, a little suspicious, especially if the English sounds funny. If it sounds like it doesn't fit somehow, or it's off base, it might be off base.
Because then your brain's like doing like this philosophical thing
correct,
during davening, and that could be taking away from
But I'll tell you something, if you do it in Hebrew, and if you misunderstand the Hebrew, you have a similar problem, right? You're going to have this problem no matter what you want. It's a matter of degree. And you're going to study. I told you the phrases in the prayer come from the prophets. They weren't made up. So you really have to go back and study each phrase in its context with the prophet and what the commentaries say there to have a full understanding. Wherever you are, understanding is not going to be perfect. The question is how imperfect. So the halacha, the law is you satisfy your obligation by praying in English. But I say you're not condemned to that. There's a very simple, gradual procedure. Take your siddur, which has Hebrew and English on both sides usually, and over the Hebrew words, write in pencil. Yes, you're allowed to write in the siddur. Write the English words, and do that 2 or 3 words a week. And then read those Hebrew words with the English words above them, so you know what they mean. Now, there's repetition here. The word Baruch appears like 25 times. So you got it once, you got it for 25 minutes, right? Yeah. After a few weeks, you'll have the whole Shemoneh, as you would say, the whole thing in Hebrew, and you'll be understanding it. So to some extent, the extent to which you understand some Hebrew. But understanding prayer, like other Jewish texts or other Jewish sources, is a lifetime project. You never give up. You never run out of new understanding and new analysis. So it's really a matter of degree. But you should try to progress to pray in Hebrew. You should do that. Okay. So that now, the third thing is open my heart to your Torah. Let my soul pursue your commandments. We'll talk about this, the idea of Torah first, the commandments second. That's a long subject. But at any rate, this is a third subject. First, my speech. Secondly, my interpersonal attitudes. And third, my heart to your Torah and my soul pursue your commandments. And then, as for all those who plot against me, speedily nullify their scheme and disrupt their plot. That's fourth. Because if I'm going to ask for help against my enemies, I ought to be able to present some merit that enables me to deserve that help. And these 3 are the merits on which I'm making the fourth request. And there's 2 dimensions here: my speech, my interpersonal, and my Torah and mitzvos. One is that my performance should be worthy, should be merit worthy. But the other is that I want my performance to be merit worthy. The very fact that I want it is something that's spiritually positive in me. You're defined to a great extent by what you hope for, what you long for, what you're working for, just as much as you're defined by what you are and what you do. A person, in our terms, is an object in motion. So you can stop it at one point, you take the first derivative and get the tangent, which then tells you it's instantaneous velocity, but 10 minutes later, the curve will have a different shape, it'll be a different instantaneous velocity, and because you're a person in progress. So when thinking of where you are and the significance of where you are, it's not only what you are at that moment, but it's where you're going and also where you came from. It's your link to the past and the future, which determines in large part what your status is. And there's a verse in one of the Psalms, 27, which says that I'm hoping that God will protect me because I desire to be close to him. I desire to serve him. I desire to be in his context because I have that desire. He should recognize my request. So both the performance and the desire for that goal is something which can be used as a basis for making this petition. Okay, so far? Okay, now you go on to say, act for your right hand's sake, act for your sanctity's sake, act for your Torah's sake. Sorry, act for your name's sake, your right hand's sake, your sanctity's sake, and your Torah's sake. Here you have a progression, a name, as we have said in the past, and as the philosophers say. I saw this, as I told you, from Charles Sanders Peirce. I used to teach pragmatism in university, among other things. I saw it from the Pri Tzaddik, who was a Hasidic philosopher, who lived about the same time. It is absolutely certain that neither one knew about the other and the other one's writings, but their definition of a name was the same, which is interesting to me. You have a person and you have an object, and the name stands in between, the name for the object. The name is what the person uses to talk about and think about the object. So the name stands as a kind of intermediary linking the person to the object. Now, when you think of the name and the person using the name, so then the person is infinitely richer than his name, but the name carries an identity. So here we say, act for your name's sake. That means to say, you are engaged in a process in the world. The Creator created the world for a purpose, and it's a purpose that's in the making, and we are enrolled in putting that purpose forward and helping to achieve that purpose. And his reputation in the world, how people think about him and relate to him, is part of his purpose. So, for example, when the Jews in the wilderness failed with the golden calf and with the sin of the spies, and God says to Moses, I'm going to wipe them out and make a new nation out of you. They failed me, they don't deserve it, I'll make a new nation out of you. And Moses responds, and of course God's announcement was to cause him to respond. That was the whole purpose of it. And in both cases, he says a bunch of things, but in both cases, one of the claims is, what will the rest of the world say about you, that you took this people out of Egypt and then they all died in the wilderness? What will they say? Either they'll say, you're not strong enough to overpower the 31 kings in the land of Canaan, so you took them out of Egypt, but now you're out of power, or you had a grudge against them, both of which are dead wrong, and the Creator cares how people think about him, because his goal is to reach all mankind, not just the Jewish people. We are the wedge, we are the tool by which his presence should be communicated to the world. Isaiah calls us the light into the nations. So as in the end, the way the prophet puts it, the whole earth will be filled with the knowledge of God. That means all people will have this knowledge. All people will understand it. So that being the case, when I say do it for the sake of your name, of course I know that your name is something that you're committed to in terms of the process that you are engaging in for the world. And therefore it's a reason for you to do it. And this is said over and over again about different subjects as well. To do it for his name's sake. Now, a person's right hand is much closer to him than his name. The person's right hand is what he acts with. It's not just his reputation, it's what he does in the world. And we say, for the sake of the actions that you perform, that they should have the quality that you want them to have, please do the things that I asked for, so that the actions will have the full quality that they should have. That's one step closer. One second, let me finish. Then there's his holiness. That's an essential quality. It's not just a limb with which he does. It's an essential quality that his holiness would require these kinds of things to be done in the world. The Sephardi order is different. We reversed the last two, but let's do it in terms of yours. And the last one is his Torah. Now, on the one hand, the Torah is a book, and a book that he gave to the Jewish people, and in certain ways made it available to the rest of the world as well. But the Torah encapsulates his will. And his will is even more essential to him than his holiness. His holiness is what he is, his will is what he does. The source from which what he does comes. So this is a hierarchy of going from the outside in, talking about the Creator, and indicating that in all four of these aspects, there's a commitment to doing in the world the things that we've asked for. This is a very, shall I say, it's comprehensive, and it's a very deep expression of the different ways in which we relate to the Creator. Yeah.
So what about those of us who are lefty? Like I'm a lefty, for example. So that just that we're saying right just because most people are right-handed, or where do I fit in?
Okay. So the question is whether right means an orientation or it means a functionality. There are places where it is said that for a lefty, this is his right hand. Right doesn't mean which way you're facing. It means the functionality. So the mitzvahs that are done by the right hand and a right-handed person, those mitzvahs are done in the left hand with a left-handed person because that's the correct hand. In his body, the correct hand for doing those things is that hand. So in other words, yamin doesn't have to be a direction. It can be a functionality. It really connotes the functionality rather than I shouldn't say rather than, but that's the main connotation. Let me add something here because this is the Talmud says when you finish the silent prayer, you should take 3 steps back, and then you bow. And you bow right, left, and center. That's what it says in the Talmud: right, left, and center. Well, there are some people when they come back they bow like this: 1, 2, 3. And there are some people who bow like this: 1, 2, 3. What are the second group of people doing? It's supposed to be right, left, and center. Talmud doesn't say sometimes this and sometimes that. What are they doing?
Left-handed?
No. Good try. It was only an association in my mind. It's going to come out that the Talmud is exactly right. It's exactly correct. Because what we haven't specified is who's right.
Okay.
You're standing, so to speak, facing the Creator. Is it your right or his right? Both are bowing to the right. The question is whose right it is. And then one says one says the other. There's a lot of things like this. Because I'm off on a tangent now, we are told that the word emes, which means something like truth, that's a whole story, has the first, middle, and last letter of the aleph base, right? How many letters are there in the aleph base? 22. The last time I checked, an even number doesn't have a middle, does it? You have it just has a space between the two 11s, but that's not a letter. Golly. Oh, well, maybe it's only approximate, Okay, middle, they don't have to be exactly right. No, it's exactly right, because there are 5 more letters, otiot sofiot, the letters that come, which at the letter end of a word change their shape, and 22 and 5 is 37, which is an odd number. The middle number is 14, and the regular mem is the 14th letter. That's exactly right. So when you see something, we say, oh, so come on, even numbers don't have a middle, right? They don't, and still, what the Talmud says is right.
With 5, there's 3 letters that have.
No, they're 5. Manzapach, there are 5.
Am I going crazy?
Mem, nun, tzadi, pei, chaf. 5.
Okay, yeah. I don't know where I was thinking 3 from.
I don't know. And of course, you put them in order. You put them in the order that they come in the aleph base, right? Each one that has a different form at the end. Put it next to that one, and it comes out that the regular mem is the 14th out of 27.
I guess I just forget Tzaddik and Pei then.
Okay.
Much, so.
Okay. And then we end with a verse which we say very often. May the expressions of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, Hashem, my rock and my Redeemer. Here, interestingly, right, the expression of my mouth come first, and the thoughts of my heart second. Now, I'm not going to go through this in detail now. We did it a while ago, and it's a real subject. But there is a question whether there's such a thing as thought without language. When I grew up about 130 years ago, that was the dominant orthodoxy. Behaviorism was all the rage in psychology and linguistic studies. And the thought was, of course, you can't think without language. Words are what you think in. And if you think it and you can't say it, then you're just wrong. You're not thinking it. There's a lot of evidence against that, and the mood has shifted against it. In Jewish terms, it seems quite clear that it recognizes thought without language, thought prior to language, thought which afterwards becomes expressed in language. The act of expressing language is sometimes a struggle, finding the right words. Did you ever have that problem, that you couldn't find the right words? You ask somebody for help, and then somehow between you, a formula emerges, and you say, yeah, that's it. Those are the words that do the job. And if you weren't thinking without language, how would you know whether the words were right or wrong? Obviously, the words are meant to express something that's already in your mind, and that something can tell you whether the words do it well or don't do it well. So there is such a thing as thought without language, prior to language. In fact, I just saw now a new approach in the the non-existent evolutionary explanation of the appearance of language. It's really non-existent. They have really no data and no evidence, and they just dream up things. But this thought is that language didn't evolve for the sake of thought. Language evolved for the sake of communication. The thoughts you have. It's just that if you want to communicate to somebody else, you need a vehicle to do that. And this study is being done by brain activity. And they have the linguistic areas, monitoring blood flow and things like that. When you're dealing with language, it's this brain activity in certain areas of the brain. And then when you're solving problems like mathematical problems, it's not that area of the brain. You're definitely thinking, you're trying out hypotheses, you're thinking about which way to go, but it's not the linguistic areas that are active. It's other areas that are active. So in this, they want to say, you see that language isn't necessary for thought. And if it isn't necessary for thought, you don't want to say that it evolved for the sake of making thought possible. And the other function that language has is communication. Communication is very important. So maybe it evolved for that. Which, I don't put my stock in any of these things because I don't think that they're solid in any way. Okay, and then the final thing at the bottom of the page, he who makes peace in his heights may make peace upon us and upon all Israel. Now, when I was roughly your age, and I was exploring traditional Judaism for the first time, I read this, I thought to myself, why would we want peace to be limited to Israel? Wouldn't we want peace for the whole world? And because I wasn't committed and I wasn't bound, I added that on my own. My spiritual mentor, my Rabbi, I went to him months later, and I said to him, by the way, when it comes to this verse, I add Ve'al Kol Haaretz, all the whole world. That's okay, isn't it? And he said, no, it's not okay. But let me ask you something. Now, here I am, undergraduate major in philosophy. What does he who makes peace in his heavens mean? What's that? Are there wars among the angels? He has to negotiate a truce? What kind of peace could that be? And I thought to myself, oh man, I'm the philosopher. I'm the deep thinker, right? It didn't even occur to me to ask that question. So he explained it as follows. The one thing an angel has, by virtue of his very creation and his very position, is he knows what he is and he knows what he has to do. His purpose is absolutely clear to him. He doesn't have an identity crisis. Setting priorities, wondering about who I am. Maybe I should travel to India. Not an angel. He's created with that essence absolutely open and clear to him. We're not like that. We do have identity crises. We do worry. We do wonder. We do try out different hypotheses, different behavioral forms. So, but then when you do that, you're not focused, you're not consistent, you're not building one thing, and it may be the right thing to search. It could be. But it definitely means that you're only in a preliminary stage for your life. You spend your whole life searching, something's gone wrong. So, he says, make peace upon us and upon all Israel, that we should know who we are, know what we are, know what our purpose is, so that we can focus on that. We should have the kind of peace that he makes in the heavens, he should make for us also. After he told me that, he said, but you could ask your question again, and you could say, wouldn't we want that to happen for all of mankind? That everyone should know what his place is, know what his essence is, know what his purpose is. And he said, I said, yeah, it's a good question. He said, yes, it's something that we do hope for, but in the meantime, we have to play the role of leadership to bring the world there. And a leader has to believe in his mission. If a leader is in doubt about his mission, he's not going to be a successful leader. So we're talking about us in the interim stage having the kind of divine guidance which will enable us to play this leadership role. So that's one way to explain this. And as I always say, there are many, many different ways. These sources are infinitely deep. But that's what one way to explain it. Are we together? Yeah.
When we get up to the first Yeshivat Ohr, if that's where you're holding in Shemoneh Esrei, then you could do Kedusha, right? You could stop your Shemoneh Esrei and participate.
Right.
So is it better to, let's say you're in Shalom Rav, or even maybe a little bit before by Modim, is it better to kind of rush that so you can participate, or you should continue your own pace?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
only
not.
if you exactly at that moment literally got to that point.
You're standing in the most august, intimate position vis-a-vis the Creator, and you're focusing your mind on Him, and you're saying things that have to be said. You don't rush that. You don't rush that. The response is, Oshikana Shalom. The crucial thing is that you should say it together. You should start together with the congregation, but you don't have to finish with the congregation. No, you go at your own pace. Yeah.
When it comes to the names that we put in over by the end of Iman Anini, what's the reason we would do that? And should we know what the name, what
the verse means? You should know what the verse means. Yes, no question about it. Sometimes things in rabbinic sources are put, so I put it in an almost flippant way to hide the underlying. What's said here is maybe when you're identified there, you'll forget your name, but you'll remember your verse. And you remember your verse, my name begins with this and ends with that, and you'll be able to figure it out. I think a little bit deeper, after all, many people have the same verse. There are, maybe 80 or so verses, and there are millions of people. So obviously lots of people have the same verse, but it's not an accident. It's not an accident. And that verse should teach you something about what you are, where you're going, what you need to prioritize.
The verse sounds very out of I feel like I have to actually look up where the pasuk is in the.
You should.
in a-
Absolutely. You should look it up, look what the commentators say. Because it's definitely, just like, for example, your parents' names for you is considered to be a kind of miniature prophecy. It's not a joke. And this has a practical effect. When a person, let's say, sick, very sick, God forbid, and they want to help him, one of the things they do is either add a name to his name or change his name. And that is an acceptable custom. But my Rabbi said never do it. Never do it, because it wasn't an accident you got that name. That's the name that you are. And you should never touch the name. The others would not disagree that it's a kind of miniature prophecy. They would say, yes, it is, but for the sake of life and death, you can override that. So same thing with the verse. The verse that's been chosen for that name, it's worthwhile to look at it and to study it, definitely. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
I missed. I think when you said he who makes peace in the heights in the heavens. I got that you saying that the angels weren't having an identity crisis, but like what was?
So that's what we're asking for us.
Oh, yeah.
He who makes
Oh.
peace in his heights, he should make for us the same peace that they have.
Got it.
Otherwise, why would you invoke the fact that he makes peace in his heights? The point of it is that what the angels have by their creation, he should provide for us.
But then why not the whole world? Why just for us?
Because we're picturing ourselves in the middle of a historical process.
Oh, okay.
And we are the ones who are supposed to bring the world to that realization. So what we're doing is asking for aid in this mission of bringing the world along. And if we're going to be leaders to bring them along, which is one of our responsibilities, then we have to be convinced of and committed to our project without question. Yeah.
Rob, what's the difference between upon us and upon Israel?
Oh, there's a local community. The way the prayer is structured is this: all the prayers are in the plural. So the prayers are when we ask for the Jewish people as a whole. Our access to the Creator in prayer is because we're Jews. You have to picture yourself coming into the throne room, and an angel at the door and he says, "Who are you?" "I'm Reuven Schwartz." "Sorry, come back next week." "Who are you?" "I'm Rabbi. I'm a Jew." By all means. By all means. Your personal identity isn't what gets you in the door. It's the fact that you are a Jew, and together, hopefully with 9 other Jews, you're also praying together as a congregation. You're representing the Jewish people, and you're praying on behalf of the Jewish people. Now, we are also instructed that we have personal needs. We should add in our personal needs in the prayer whose category is relevant to our needs. So if a person has a health need, the prayer for health, prayer is let the whole of the Jewish people be healthy, and then add in, I'm also a Jew, I'm one of them, and therefore let me be healthy also. Okay? Now, that's because I get in by being under the rubric of the people as a whole. But a person has responsibilities to his local community more so than he does to other Jews. If there are 2 petitions for charity, one in your local community and one from afar, and you have one portion of money that's available for charity, and you can only give to one, the halacha is you should give it to the local community and not to the ones who are farther away. So you definitely have more responsibilities for them. So when you put yourself in, often enough, we put in the local community also because I have more responsibilities to them than I have to other people. That's the idea there. Okay, I want to introduce to you a problem and let you think about it. Maybe you'll ask other people about it, and then I'll talk about it next week.
Oh wait, I had
Oh yeah,
one more
sorry.
question
Yeah, sure.
on this. So at the very end, it says now respond, amen.
Yeah.
I feel like that's who responds? Who are we saying that?
You see, these words that we're reading now are said. These reasons are said by the reader out loud to the congregation.
The Chazan.
Yeah, the Chazan.
Yeah.
So he says, "Let us say Amen." That's his invitation to us to say Amen.
So we don't.
And this, by the way, when they sing it in certain contexts, it shouldn't be that the whole congregation says together with the reader, "V'yemru Amen," because he's giving you a command, and they're supposed to respond to his command. You can't say it together with him. It ruins the whole syntax. So you should hear him say it and say Amen after he says V'yimro Amen. You don't say it together with him.
That makes sense. Then if we're saying it's on our own, do we not? We just end it upon all Israel.
Those are opposite. I thought the Chazan doesn't get to this point.
It's not about this one. It's like
It's right after this.
Yeah.
No, but this is not. This is still Shemoneh Esrei.
Yeah. No, we do say it, but by Kaddish we say.
No, if we say it, if we say it in silent prayer, then it's a problem because we're not saying it to anybody. That's a good.
It's a very Yeshivat question.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable
What was
question.
the show about? Who yes, Lenu?
We do it in God knows on also.
Yeah.
That's different.
Because it's different. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think of it. Thank you very much. I'll look it up. Very good. So let's see. Do I have time to do this? Let's try to get started. Take a look on page 21. The middle paragraph, 3 lines down. That you accustom us to study your Torah and attach us to your commandments. Torah first, commandments second. Take a look on page 89. About 8 lines from the bottom. Our Father, merciful Father, who acts mercifully, have mercy upon us. Instill in our hearts to understand, to elucidate, to listen, to learn, to teach. Safeguard, perform, and fulfill all the words of your Torah, Torah's teaching. First, understanding, learning, and then performance. Next sentence. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah and attach our hearts to your commandments. Torah first, commandments second. Now take a look on page 103. The third blessing, repentance. Bring us back, our Father, to your Torah, and bring us near, our King, to your service. Torah first, and service second. Then take a look where we just were on page 119. The third line, open my heart to your Torah, that my soul will pursue your commandments. Pretty consistent, eh? And then about 157. About 10 lines down. May he open our heart through his Torah and place within our heart love and awe of him, that we may do his will and serve him wholeheartedly. So again, Torah first and doing the mitzvah second. It's pretty consistent. Okay, having seen that, and by the way, the phrase in our circles, Torah and mitzvahs, is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous. It's always Torah first and mitzvah second. But if you take a look on page 341, This now is the Shabbos prayers. All of what we saw before is the weekday prayers. Now, 341, the last paragraph. O God and God of our forefathers, may you be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your commandments and grant us a share in your Torah. Here it's backwards. Commandments first, Torah second. Why is that? Why is that? And in the language of the people, you never hear it. You never hear commandments in Torah. Never. Something's going on here. First, you have to understand why the standard would be Torah first, the commandments second, and then why this should be different. You want to say something?
No.
Oh, right. It's. I have a deep explanation of it. I haven't even seen the question asked anywhere else, but ask around. You're going wherever you're for Shabbos, ask people and see what you get, and we'll talk about it, Mir Hashem, on Sunday.
I think